Hi there. I wanted to do a review of the Armacost LED low voltage tape light system and offer up a few tips that might help you in your application as well. So what I had, this is our kitchen. It's still under renovation with the new cabinets in. So as you can see, I've got 3 banks of cabinets, and it's not easy to link them all into one array, which would have been ideal, of course. I did want to have them all switched all to the same switch, and I didn't want to direct wire the transformers. So what I did was I wired in additional plugs under the cabinets in each of the banks. As you can see, they're within approximately 1 inch to 1.5 inches below the cabinets. And because they're within 3 meters of the sink, they had to be GFCI protected and switched. So it's a combination GFCI switch. That allows me to control them all from the same outlet. So the Armacost tape light system, I should back up. The first thing I did was plan out in fairly close detail the lengths of the cabinets and what would be required for cuts. And I'll show you the setup that we're looking at here. This is the most difficult one because the underside of the cabinets is actually 3 compartments. And so we have a ridge between the compartments, which would have been ideal if we could have had one straight strip. But of course, nothing's ever easy. The more simple ones are the single cabinets. And so this is the completed application showing the transformer up there in the left-hand corner with the wiring to the channel, diffuser, and tape light assembly at a junction or terminal box. And then I used coax cable clips to attach the wire and a zip tab to bundle the cable, the 120 volt cable, and then the cable down to the plug. Another key thing here, where did they go? Another key thing in this installation process, Armacost has excellent instructional material. So I would really encourage you to read the instructions in all of their detail. A lot of tremendous content there. And you read that, it will help you to avoid some common installation mistakes. So then I went and did my cut plan. So then we began, of course, we had to do calculations based on the Armacost reference material. We had to pick I decided I want 120 volt tape. So, 120 LEDs per meter. And then based on the length, I was able to calculate the wattage for the power supply. So the power supply is here, and I wanted the plug-in version. And then, because I decided I wanted to go with the aluminum channel, so this is an example. This is the LED in the aluminum channel, not mounted yet. And then the opaque diffuser goes on top of that. And this is for my more complicated application with the 3 under cabinet. I had to drill, where are they? I had to drill holes between each of the cabinets, 1/2 inch in diameter, to allow the connector cables to go through. So this is a bit of a challenge. I installed the tape in the first length with a wire splice. What do they call it? I think it's a splice connector. And so that is in the end there. Then I have to thread all the LEDs and cable through the holes and get them in position, and then tape the LED tape into the channel once it's in position. So in order to get this cut to the right length, it requires some precision. You have to measure these end caps and then fit in the end cap on either end, because yeah, if you don't allow that amount of space, then you go to put the end plug in and it doesn't fit properly. So I've measured this piece and I've cut it. I will connect it together. Same thing with the third compartment. As you can see, it's all assembled, ready to go, and so I cut it and connected it, and now I'll thread it through the holes, get it in place, and then clip the metal channels in place, and then apply the tape. So as you can see, it's a bit fiddly. These end caps are great. They have a hole. They come in a pair. One end has a hole, the other end doesn't. So in an application like this, it makes it difficult, because if you have to apply, because these things have two ends, you have to modify one of the ends. So what I did was I took the plastic and cut a channel in it so that this plastic can be applied. Whoop, there it goes. The plastic end cap, see how I've cut the U-shaped channel in it? It can be applied after the fact and still look nice. So a few little tips. I'll just show you the tools that I've used. An assembly of different screwdrivers for the various screws. I've used screws to install the transformers attached by screws, and so a variety of different screwdrivers, a electrical tool to cut back the insulation, tape to cut the LED tape, and I used a manual drill to drill out holes for each of the components. I just found that was a little bit easier to control, and because I was using a fairly small drill bit, it was easier to do with a small handheld drill. At this workstation, I didn't actually do the work here in the kitchen, but in order to cut the aluminum channel, what did I do? Oh, I've got some pieces here. In order to cut the aluminum channel, I used a combination of hacksaw and metal file. The metal file was to smooth off the ends of the channel so that there was less rough surfaces and make it smoother. The small square was to be able to mark, because I had to make several cuts. I wanted the cuts to be fairly straight. I mean, doesn't have to be perfect, but a little bit of accuracy is good. This small utility saw with a fairly fine tooth on it was for cutting the plastic diffuser. I used tape on the end so that I could mark it with a pen and get a fairly fine mark on it, and the tape also protected the plastic if the tooth of the saw slipped a little bit. Scissors, of course, to cut the LED tape, and when you're cutting that, you have to make sure that you cut it very carefully in the middle. I'm not sure if yeah, there you go. The little copper spots here. At any of those copper dots, you can cut in half and splice your wire onto that. You don't want to cut it anywhere else on the tape. The clamp and the little block of wood I used for holding the channel. I would take a longer piece of channel, put it together like that, clamp it, and it allowed a little bit more rigidity and allowed the cutting process to go a little bit more smoothly. And I used this block of wood with sandpaper. It was handy for sanding down the cut edges of the diffuser. I used, in order to cut those end caps, I used a combination of a very fine tooth flush cut saw and utility knife to cut that little U shape and to round off the edges so that they would be less apt to damage the insulation of the electrical low voltage cable. And to cut, you can, if you have a multiple cabinet installation, you can put a cut in, but in order to run either the tape or the tape and connectors required to install the channel, you need a 1/2 inch hole. So for that, I used a variety of drill bits and my trusty handy dandy cordless drill. And you probably could use a brad point bit or a Forstner bit, but again, using the variety of diameter drill bits gave me a little bit more control, and I ended up with the holes a little bit more accurately placed as a result. These little guys are metal clips, and the little metal clips, you mount those to the underside of the cabinet. Let's see, like this. One on either side if you have a really long length. Where'd it go? There it is. You could use more than 2, but 2 is adequate. I took my cabinets are fairly, they're 3/4 inch plus material. So I took a 3/4 inch number 6 screw, and hard to do this with one hand, but they attach using the screw through it like that, and I used little blocks of wood for spacers. Reading the material, keeping them about, this is 1.5 inch furring strips, so that allowed me to keep a consistent installation depth. And so I was able to, holding the clip next to the little block, get the clips at exactly the right spacing, and I was able to get them spaced from the end by using a measurement on the long edge of the furring strip. So then once the clips are in place, then and once everything's assembled, you put it all together, and then that aluminum channel just clips into the metal clips. It just clips in, and I can't really do this with one hand, but it just clips nicely in. And then you end up with an installation that looks pretty much like this. So when I get this 3 cabinet component put together, I'll just do another quick video to show you what it looks like. Okay, so I finished my complicated run here with the 3 cabinet components underneath the cabinet here, and I'll just show you. So I added a dimmer. This shows the power supply. This is the first LED channel, diffuser, and tape light. Through the cabinet to the next run. This is a 9-inch piece. Again, through the cabinets. And then we have about another 2-foot run on this side. Just a couple of tips I'll point out is when you're cutting or measuring the channels, whenever you've got one of these end caps here, make sure that you leave half an inch to 3/4 of an inch short of the cabinet, to make sure if you don't do that, you're not going to be able to get these caps properly in place, or at least not very easily. Another little tip is when you're cutting your wiring from the power supply to the light, I'd really recommend that you leave a loop of wire, approximately 6 to 10 inches. Loop it around, tape it up to the cabinet. I decided after the fact that I wanted to add the dimmer, and if I hadn't have left that extra loop of cable, it would have been a little bit more fiddly to add the dimmer. So make sure you leave just a little bit of extra when you're doing the connections. So let's see if they work. We've got our light switch here. We'll turn it on, and bingo, they do work. So with the dimmer system, I added three dimmers in, one for each of the light installations. They're called the 2-in-1 Armacost LED dimmer, and I paired all three of them with one wireless touchpad for 2-in-1 LED dimmer. That looks like this, and it can be mounted in an electrical box on the wall or surface mounted. I chose to surface mount it. And so this gives me on-off capability if you want it. Like if you want to, I put in a switch, but if you choose to not have a switch, you can use the pad here for on-off capability. So this gives me dimming capability for all three of the units. And there we go. So we don't get it would have been better to demonstrate this after dark. It gives you very nice romantic mood lighting, but you can see the basic functionality there. With these dimmers, you can also, there's a knob on there. You can manually adjust each of the dimmers separately. When you shut the power off at the switch and then turn the power back on again, it remembers the last setting. So it's a very slick system. Highly recommend it. Now the only beef that I have with this is we have about I guess it would be about a 2-inch apron or valance underneath the cabinets. And if you notice there, it's not very obtrusive, but you can see a little bit of that knob underneath the cabinet. At least short people like me can. It's not highly objectionable, but it's something that I wish Armacost had addressed in their design. They could have made that design a half an inch shorter or so, or made the knob smaller, but it's there. Another tip when you're putting together your system, highly recommend that you plug in and test your lighting strip before you install it and mount it to the cabinet. A couple of reasons for that. It allows you to check to make sure you've got your connections if you happen to make a mistake, and you have to be careful to align positive to positive in each of the strip connections. If you miss that, your light won't work. I ran into a situation where I had purchased two different colors of lighting. What you see here is the bright white, but I had connected on my 3 light strip here. I had put the end run, I had accidentally put in natural or soft white. And so when you looked at the light, you had a really bright, nice white light here, and then it looked really dim over at the far end. Well, if I had plugged it in and tested it first, I would have caught that before I did the installation. Now, with this setup, I chose the surface mount channels with diffuser, You can see the little clips there, very handy to pop in and out. So it didn't cause me a lot of pain, but something to bear in mind. Really good idea to test it first. Another tip that I ran into with these particular channels was with those clips that I just showed you, it's really handy to have a putty knife because the clips are tight, and so without the putty knife to slide up in there, basically I slide a putty knife up between the channel and the clip, and then very easily pop the channel in. Without that, it's a bit tight and requires some effort. So just a couple things to be aware of. Very happy with the system. Going back to the dimmer, Armacost does have another option. It's called the Wi-Fi LED dimmer / lighting controller, which is a Wi-Fi solution, not manual dimmer, but it does also pair with the touchpad. And instead of being about 1.5 inches, almost 2 inches to the tip of the knob, this one is at more like 5/8 to 3/4 of an inch thick. And if you're concerned about this little knob hanging down, okay, so I'm guessing that you probably have questions about the cost. It was not cheap. The total system was about $400. So that includes everything: the tape light, the channels, the diffusers, 3 dimmers, touchpad. Now this is with the 120 LED per meter tape density. So you can go cheaper. You can do just the tape light and skip the diffusers and the dimmers and all that jazz. Tape light and power supply for my setup would have been about $200. Adding the channels and diffusers was about $100 extra, and the 3 dimmers and touchpad was about $100 extra. So that is what it cost. You could reduce the cost by choosing a lower density, going to 60 LED per meter, which would probably be quite adequate, would reduce the cost by about 50% overall, at least for the lighting components minus the dimmers. I chose the 120 LED density because this is going to be task lighting, and my eyes are getting older, so I wanted to make sure that we didn't scrimp on the light density. I did find, though, that it was a bit bright for times when you might want to be sitting at the dining room and just have some accent lighting. So that's why I put in the LED dimmer. So yeah, 60 LED density would probably be just fine if you wanted to reduce the cost a little bit. Why this system? It is, in terms of cost, it's very comparable to other solutions in the big box stores. You can get LED lighting, direct wire. You can get other tape light kits. This stuff is very customizable. That's probably the major benefit. It's also very sleek and very high quality. I'm impressed with Armacost and their customer service. And if you buy it through a dealer, Likely Valley, you get even better customer service. My only drawback with this is it is a bit fiddly. I mean, the advantage is that it's customizable. The disadvantage is that it's customizable. And so you've got a lot of moving parts when you go to order it. And you've got a lot of connections, small little connectors, small wires, small print on all the stuff. So if you like a do-it-yourself kit, this is great. If you don't, not so great. And just to wrap up, there's a few resources I'd point you out to. Armacost itself, the website, has really good resources, including support and FAQ section. Lee Valley, one of the dealers, has a a great resource. It's a book that looks like this, and in the back there is a workbook, problem solving, and you can actually get your cut list of all the materials that you want or need and all the options. The pricing may be a little bit outdated because it's a couple years old. To get to it, you go to leevalley.com. Make sure you're on the, depending on where you are, the Canadian or American website. You go to the bottom of the page, and where am I here? Yeah, you go to the bottom of the page, and having a little bit of trouble with my mouse here, where it says shop, you go to click on catalogs, and then when you do, it comes up like this, and where it says browse our latest catalog, you may have to click over a few times, but you will eventually find the LED lighting catalog/resource. And that's a great tool. I'd really highly recommend you get that. You can also go into most Lee Valley stores and grab a paper copy. So that is LED tape lighting with diffusers, channels, all the bells and whistles, and I hope you have great success when you build your project. Over and out.